Maggie Barnes peeked out from behind her curtain window. She watched as the two men carried the furniture out of the moving van and into the house next door. You might think that she was hoping that her new neighbors would be nice people, but all Maggie cared about was how long they would stay. In the last 2 years, Maggie had seen at least 20 families move into that house. Some stayed for a few weeks, while others only stayed days. She couldn't understand why they weren't happy there. The house was cozy and the surrounding area was beautiful. A car pulled up behind the moving van. A couple and their 2 children got out and stood on the pavement looking up at their new house. They look like a nice family, thought Maggie. She watched as they went inside. Later that afternoon, Maggie decided she would bake some cookies and take them around to her new neighbors. She walked up the path and knocked on the front door. A man opened the door. "Hi there, I'm Maggie. I live next door. I brought you a little welcome gift." The man took the cookies from Maggie. "That's so kind of you. Thank you. Would you like to come in?" "Oh no, I can see you're busy. I'll stop by for a chat once you get settled in." Maggie said goodbye and went home. She smiled to herself. Well, he seems really nice. Hopefully they will like living there. It was around 2 a.m. when something woke Maggie up, and she sat bolt up in bed. What was that? She thought. I'm sure I heard a scream. I must have been dreaming. Just as she was about to lay back down, she heard it again. It hadn't been a dream. Someone definitely screamed, and it came from next door. Maggie hoped that everything was okay there. She got up and went downstairs to make a cup of tea, but as she walked past her window, Maggie could see a family running out of her neighbor's house. She opened her door and called out to them. "Are you okay? I heard a scream." "We can't stay here any longer. The house is haunted," shouted the man. Maggie could see the terror on their faces as they got into their car and drove away. When she got up the following morning, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened the night before. She didn't believe in ghosts, but there was no denying something had definitely scared the family away. She decided to go and check out the house herself. The front door wasn't locked, and so she opened it and went inside. The house was perfect. I could live here myself, thought Maggie. It's much nicer than my house. The house felt so warm and cozy. There was no way it was haunted. Maggie called the housing corporation's agents, and after much convincing, and despite not officially being allowed to sell her house, within a couple of weeks she had bought the property and moved into it. Everything was fine. Maggie laughed to herself when she remembered what the family had told her. It was obvious they had imagined it. Maggie was exhausted. She decided she would have an early night. She tried to read her book, but she couldn't keep her eyes open. She settled down and went to sleep. What was that? Maggie sat up in bed. The hairs on her arms stood up on end, and her spine tingled. She had heard a noise. Something was in the room next to hers. She didn't know whether to pretend to be asleep or to go investigate. Then she heard it again. She looked around for a weapon. If she had a burglar, she needed something to hit him with. All she had was a heavy vase. She picked it up and crept out of her bedroom. She opened the door to the room next door. Crash! She dropped the vase and it smashed on the floor. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her face was frozen in terror as she read the words written into the condensation on her window. You're not alone. I'm coming to get you. Welcome back to SCP Exposed. Today we bring you the Euclid class subject SCP-1171. But first, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on any more SCP stories. SCP-1171 is currently occupied by Dr. Matthews, who has established a false identity as a technical writer. A tall wall has been erected between the backyard, and all anomalous windows visible from the front of the house have been fitted with shutters. For security, several agents have moved in under the guise of lodgers. SCP-1171 is a 2-story house in Queensland, Australia. It was built in 1958 and has been owned by several families, most of whom reported no unusual activity. The anomalous properties of 1171 manifest on various windows of the house. Regardless of relative humidity, a layer of condensation is continually formed on the window panes. The source of this moisture is as yet unknown. An entity hereby referred to as SCP-1171-1 communicates by writing in the condensation, as though it were running an appendage along the surface of the window. No biological traces have been discovered on the windows that can be attributed to it. Two-way communication can be accomplished by writing back. SCP-1171 is apparently an inhabitant of another world, calling itself Beauremont. It claims not to be human and is actively hostile to humanity. It believes Dr. Matthews to be an entity similar to itself. The most recent homeowner, John Wortham, complained about ghosts, prompting investigation by civil authorities and eventually Foundation agents. Following the investigation, the house was purchased through a front organization, and Mr. Wortham's memories were altered. The following is a transcript of an interview between Dr. Matthews and SCP-1171-1. Carbon-based monkeys, go home. Hello? There was a short pause before 1171-1 replied. Is someone there? My name is Dr. Matthews. Nice to meet you. I'm Beauremont. Where are you? In my living room. Where are you? In another living room. This is neat. How are you doing this? I don't know. I thought you were doing it. It's good to have someone intelligent to talk to. An oval with 5 dots and a curved line appeared on the window. 2 dots were below the line, 1 above it, and 2 on the left. It is assessed that this is SCP-1171-1's version of a smiley face. Is there no one else there? Mostly just a bunch of gametes and carbon lovers. Can't hardly stand any of that politically correct stuff. Gametes? Yeah, you know, humans. Don't you have them there? Dr. Matthews paused for a moment and then answered, No, tell me about humans. Oh, they're the worst. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not racist or anything. Some of my best friends are human, but if they're as good as us, why do they need skin, am I right? I suppose so. Say, what do you look like? Oh, pretty average. 7 tendrils, tall, brown carapace, green bioluminescence, blue eyes. You? Same. Dr. Matthews conducted several interviews with SCP-1171-1. In one of these, the entity complained about being upstaged by a human. Doc, you there? I am now. How are you, Beauremont? I've been better. Lost a promotion to a goddamned primate. I'm sorry to hear that. It's okay. It just hurts. I know I'm better than any air-sucking sack of protoplasm. I work hard, you know? I know. They come in, they take our jobs. I tell you, Doc, one of these days, they're going to push us too far. Not that I'm saying we should get violent, but that's the natural result if things keep going this way. I hope it doesn't come to that. Oh, sure, no one does. I mean, they can't help being what they are. But they keep coming in. I mean, I don't mind having a few as neighbors, so long as they mind themselves, but would you want your spawn sibs to marry one? I suppose not. A later interview was also held by a Foundation agent. Doc, you there? He's out. I'm watching his house for him. Who are you? My name's John Doe. I am a human. Oh, I didn't know Doc knew any humans. Is that a problem? No. It's about time Doc got some human friends. Great to see that he's meeting new people. Glad to hear that. Variety is the spice of life, that's my motto. How are you? Is your skin nice and flexible? Inside's full of fluids? Everything is satisfactory, thank you. I've got to go. You take care, John Doe. Soon after, Dr. Matthews returned to the scene. He and SCP-1171-1 had this exchange. Doc, are you there? I'm here, Beauremont. Did you know there was a human in your house? Yes, he moved here recently. Well, I had some words with him. He was a bit lippy, but I put that gamete in his place. I see. He didn't give you too much trouble, did he? Nothing I can't handle. You gotta know how to talk to them is all. Let them know who's boss, that's the ticket. I'll keep that in mind. The Foundation has also discovered that SCP-1171 was able to set up a Twitter account. The account, @HumansGoHome, is primarily used to express hostility towards humanity. On the 26th of November 2012, it tweeted, Humans shouldn't be allowed to drive when they can only keep 2 eyes on the road. On another occasion, it shared, What do you call 1,000 humans at the bottom of the sea? Lowered property values. #HumansGoHome. What do you think of that SCP case? Please leave your comments down below. Mark and Jane Wright had been looking forward to their vacation all year. They were going to visit their relatives in Wisconsin. It had been more than a year since they had been home, and they were very excited to see their families again. It was a long drive from their home in Chicago, so they set off nice and early, their car packed with everything they would need for their trip. It was a beautiful day, and the couple enjoyed the journey. As they got closer and closer to Wisconsin, they began to get really excited. "I can't wait to see everyone." "I know, me too. It's going to be so much fun." As they got close to their destination, the sun began to set and the day turned into night. "Not much farther, we're nearly there." They left the freeway and drove into the familiar streets of their hometown. But just as they were about to reach their parents' home, Jane let out a shrilling scream. "Ah!" Mark turned to look at her. Her face was white as a sheet. When he saw what she had seen, he screamed too. In front of them, they could see a man standing there. Well, they guessed it was a man. You couldn't really tell because he didn't have a head. In his panic, Mark lost control of the car. It swerved and crashed into oncoming traffic. As Mark looked out of the window of the car, he could see cars crashing into each other left, right, and center. He could tell by the looks on the passengers' faces that they had all seen the same thing that he had seen. He turned to his wife, Jane. "Are you okay? You're not hurt, are you?" No, I'm fine. Did you see that?" Mark nodded. They both sat in the car in a deep state of shock. Suddenly, the car was surrounded by men wearing dark suits. Mark instantly felt that they were there to help. He jumped out of the car. "We've just seen something terrible. A man, well, if you can call him that, he didn't have a head." The men in suits looked at each other. "Did your wife see it as well?" "Yes, she did." "Okay, we're going to give you something for the shock." The men pulled out a needle from the briefcase they were carrying and administered a shot to both Mark and Jane. Welcome back to SCP Exposed. Today we bring you the safe class subject, SCP-2287, Mr. Headless. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, or you may end up seeing Mr. Headless yourself. SCP-2287 is a headless humanoid, white male who manifests multiple anomalous properties. Primary among these is that it is able to function as a living being despite lacking a head. The words Mr. Headless from Little Misters by Dr. Wondertainment are tattooed on the lower side of his back. His exposed neck stump is covered with live skin. A radiographic examination has shown that the neck stump has only the bottom 4 cervical vertebrae, but there are no signs of spinal damage. The head-based functions which SCP-2287 is able to emulate include thought, hearing, and smell. He is able to speak, but has not demonstrated the ability to replicate the normal tonalities of a human voice. As well, he claims to be blind. He does not eat or breathe, and he claimed in an interview held with him that his energy source may be some kind of amplified photosynthesis or something. Direct visual observation of SCP-2287's headlessness is not possible. Individuals who attempt to observe this will instead perceive headless versions of themselves, as seen from SCP-2287's perspective. Such individuals describe feeling disconnected from themselves, but are still able to control the movement of their own bodies, albeit with difficulty. This effect does not occur when the subject is viewed through any means other than the unaided human eye. His headlessness can be observed via live video transmission, in photographic prints, in mirrors, and through windows or lenses. Individuals who have undergone radial keratotomy have been unable to observe headlessness. No individuals who have undergone cataract surgery have as yet been available for testing. Motion detectors and similar monitoring equipment similarly show SCP-2287 to be headless. Despite this, he is capable of performing tasks which would require a head, such as wearing items of headgear including masks, hats, scarves, headphones, nose plugs, earplugs, earrings, eyeglasses, lipstick, and barrettes. SCP-2287 is to be contained in Hall B of Site-17. Except for during authorized testing, his mask is not to be removed. He does not require food, but can be provided with incense on his request, contingent on good behavior. Literature provided to SCP-2287 is to be converted into Braille. SCP-2287 was discovered in Wisconsin on November 24, 2012, after a significant number of reports from citizens appearing describing the anomalous effects of SCP-2287. Witnesses were given amnestic treatment, and he was contained without issue. The Foundation's Dr. Howard was assigned to SCP-2287. The following is a transcript of an interview held with the subject. Good evening, SCP-2287. Hey, Dr. Howard, what's up? More hearing experiments? No, actually, tonight this is more of an interview. For instance, we were wondering what you could tell us about Dr. Wondertainment. Oh, okay. I'll tell you what I can, but I never actually saw her, you know? What with the whole blind thing. But you did interact with her? With who? Oh, Dr. Wondertainment? Yeah, heck of a nice guy, most of the time, I think. He had some really crazy ideas, like what he had in mind for me. Wait, first you said her, then you said he. What? First you referred to Dr. Wondertainment as a woman, then as a man. I don't understand what you mean. Like Dr. Wondertainment as an actual person? What are you talking about? You're confusing me. But you just said, no, I'm sorry, I must have misheard, my bad. Well, okay, for a minute there, you were making zero sense at all, and they call me Headless, ha! Well, when you work for the Foundation for long enough, you discover many situations that don't entirely make sense. You did say, though, that Wondertainment had intended something specific for you? Oh, yes, right. Well, basically, you know how during the holidays there's special holiday-themed products? Yes. So basically, I'm a Halloween special, you follow? That's it? Yep, they sit me out on the porch, I play dead, and when the kids come by, woo! And I sit up and wave my arms at them, show them my stump. Look, everyone's a headless monster. Lurch around, arr, the whole deal. Dr. Wondertainment's Mr. Headless, spooky Halloween fun for the whole family. I see. And are you? Fun for the whole family, I mean? Well, I guess so, for the most part. I mean, yeah, people enjoyed me, which is great. Did you enjoy entertaining? Do you miss it? Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it could get a bit boring when I'd have to sit around waiting for people to show up. But it was really great hearing everyone's reaction, on Halloween no less. It's funny how people only find scary stuff funny one night a year, you know? Do you see yourself as scary? I see myself as someone who brings surprise and excitement. When they get scared, that means I'm doing a good job. Where we found you, back in Wisconsin, could you tell us what you were doing there? Well, I spent a few years there with this family. They mostly kept me in the attic, which was, well, it was quiet. I remember sometimes I could hear noises from downstairs if they were being loud enough, but usually it was quiet. I was pretty used to the smell. There was mildew and dust and old paper and, you know, the way metal pipes smell when they get hot. It was like that. They'd bring me down for Halloween and then put me back up afterward. And then one Halloween, they didn't come get me, so I didn't come down that year. They didn't come get me the year after either, or the year after that, and that's when I started to get worried about them. So I went downstairs and I couldn't find anybody. I felt around everywhere, but all the furniture and stuff was all gone too. Maybe they moved and forgot me. And that's what led you to wandering the city streets? Yeah, I waited around for a few weeks, and then some people opened the door to the front porch where the candy bowl usually is. And they came in. I didn't recognize their voices, but an audience is an audience, right? So I went back downstairs from the attic, and they kind of freaked out, I guess. I mean, I'm used to hearing people scream, but not like that. One of them had a, what's it called, metal thing. You hold it in your hand and it makes a sort of pop noise and it smells all chemical and then people get hurt. A gun? Okay, one of them had a gun, which I only found out when I walked up to her and tried to feel her face. Which I admit wasn't the best idea, but, well, I was kind of lonely. I mean, yeah, I should have asked first, but I was lonely and I was excited that there was someone there and I thought it was maybe somebody I knew. But it wasn't, and then there was all the screaming and the gun noises, and this was bad screaming. Not the fun kind at all, let me tell you. And then one of them was lying on the floor and smelling weird. That means he was dead, right? One of them was dead and the others ran away, but they left the door open. So I decided that was as good a time as any to go outside. So then I'm walking in the streets and there's cars all around me and they're honking at each other and making all these crashing noises with glass breaking, and there were a lot of people screaming. I remember there's usually a park close to the house, and I hoped that if I went there with bushes and stuff that I could hide in, I could at least stay out of trouble. So I made it there. I remember thinking maybe if I could get back to Dr. Wondertainment, she could fix things. Help that guy from the house not be dead, figure out what went wrong, where the family went, or get somebody new to take me. And that's pretty much where you guys found me. She didn't send you, did she? No, we intercepted some police reports. Oh. Tell me, why didn't you go back into the house, into the attic? And why didn't you try to leave sooner? Well, the front door wasn't open before that. No, I mean, why did you wait so long before you even went downstairs? Oh, well, I guess I didn't really care. I was just thinking. The attic was really quiet and the smell wasn't too bad and made it easy to think. That's something I do a lot, you know, while I'm waiting, not much else to do. What do you think about? Just things, things in general. The world, what it might be like, what it's like being me, nothing specific, I guess. But for 3 years? Yeah, why? End of log. What did you think of that SCP case? Please leave your comments below. Martin sat at his desk and stared at the pile of work in front of him. He knew there was no way he would be getting out of the office before midnight. His work colleagues had left hours ago, but Martin had a deadline to reach, and there was no way he was going to miss it. He knew that his wife would be annoyed with him for working late again, but he had no choice. There was a promotion up for grabs, and he wanted to make sure he was the one to get it. If his boss saw how dedicated he was, he would have no choice but to offer the job to him. He went over to the coffee machine and poured himself a cup, black, no sugar. That would help him stay alert and focused. He went back to his desk and started wading through the pile of work. He plodded through it without stopping for a break until eventually he had only one file left in front of him. He finished the last file and gave a sigh of relief. At last, he could go home. When he looked at the clock, he was surprised to see it was 2 a.m. He picked up his briefcase and grabbed his coat before switching off all the lights in the office. In the elevator, he watched as the numbers fell one by one, until eventually he reached the ground floor. The doors opened and he stepped out into the lobby of the building. It was pitch black and he could barely see in front of him, but he knew the way to the exit like the back of his hand. But just as he was about to open the door, he felt a strange sensation. He had a sudden realization that he wasn't alone. He called out, "Who's there?" But there was no answer. He shrugged it off. It must have been his mind playing tricks on him. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him. The hairs on his arms stood up on end, and a shiver ran down his spine. He hardly dared to turn around, but something compelled him to do so. What he saw made him gasp out loud. In front of him stood a teenage girl. She had long black hair and was wearing a school uniform. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" But as soon as the words left his mouth, the girl disappeared. She literally vanished into thin air. But then Martin saw her appear just as suddenly at the other side of the room. "How did you do that?" The next thing he knew, she had teleported again and was standing right in front of him. Martin panicked and ran straight into a storage cupboard. He locked the door behind him, hoping that would keep the girl out. He stood there waiting, listening, but all he could hear was the sound of his own heart beating, 10 to the dozen. He felt a tap on his shoulder. His heart sank and fear filled his body. Slowly, he turned around and looked straight into the eyes of the teenage girl, standing behind him in the cupboard. Welcome back to SCP Exposed. Today we bring you safe class subject SCP-835-JP, Keteru Yamiko. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss out on any SCP stories. SCP-835-JP is described as a teenage girl with long black hair who wears mainly black school uniforms, named Keteru Yamiko. Although her age and appearance may increase or decrease in about 10 years, and she can wear clothing that is not a student uniform, she is generally considered attractive. Her character is often described as melancholic due to her taciturnity and lack of emotional ups and downs, and she greatly dislikes the idea of others seeing her. Keteru Yamiko can teleport from one dark area to another, regardless of distance or obstructions. She utilizes this ability to approach, attack, and kill targets quickly with a large kitchen knife in her possession. She is also said to have the ability to control darkness at will, engulfing objects and making them disappear, although the principle behind this is unknown. Due to her abilities, she was kidnapped and raised as an assassin by a group of interest that is hostile to the Foundation, and it is believed that this is how her current personality was formed. Keteru Yamiko has been neutralized by Protocol Idle 835. The possibility of strengthening containment by expanding the scope of the protocol outside the Foundation is currently being studied in order to prepare for potential containment breaches that could result from a major cognito hazard of similar incidents within the Foundation. SCP-835-JP was originally a phenomenon that occurred only to the Foundation personnel, first identified in 1996. The phenomenon occurs in a cycle of about 1 to 3 months, and the subject who encounters it disappears from the place in a few seconds, with a large amount of blood left behind. No subject, dead or alive, has ever been rediscovered. Investigations have confirmed that the blood left at the scene was the subject's, and its amount suggests that the subject was fatally injured before the disappearance. There are no significant common features of SCP-835-JP in terms of subject, time, or location, except that the victim is invariably a Foundation employee, and the scene is a dark place with poor visibility. Due to its unpredictability, suddenness, and the fact that the victims disappear without exception, no experimental observations of this phenomenon have been successful, and the details remain unknown to date. Based on the limited information obtained from the testimonies of witnesses who were present at the scene, as well as surveillance video footage, it is known that the victims acted as if they were being attacked by some imperceptible entity. However, the existence of the attacker has never been corroborated. Incident 835 describes how a booklet with a hand-drawn, anime-style girl titled Artist's Impression of SCP-835-JP was found on the desk of a research assistant, Brooks. After reviewing the contents of the booklet on the spot, it was discovered that the character in question had been given the name Keteru Yamiko and a set of attributes such as personality, origins, and abilities. The booklet was submitted to Head Research Daniels on the same day. It was later announced that research assistant Brooks admitted that the booklet belonged to him and that he would be transferred after a few days of suspension. However, since Incident 835, the phenomenon that had previously occurred in a cycle of at least 3 months remained inactive for about 5 months. Dr. Phillips, believing the two are somehow related, enacted Protocol Idle 835. Due to the prolonged inactivity of SCP-835-JP Keteru Yamiko after Incident 835-JP, it was speculated that the anomaly was influenced by the perceptions of the Foundation personnel. Based on this hypothesis, Dr. Phillips recommended and received approval to implement Protocol Idle 835, with the goal of embedding a shared perception of SCP-835-JP in the Foundation personnel. As a common setting for dissemination, the setting of Keteru Yamiko, which was acknowledged by a significant number of personnel during Incident 835, was adopted as it was, considering the fact that it had already been effective to some extent, and because of the importance of smooth and immediate transmission of information. On the 15th of March 2004, the protocol was put into practice. Firstly, all documents and information referring to SCP-835-JP were revised to make it easier for the viewers to associate them with Keteru Yamiko, by including a detailed setting and replacing the object's designation number with a unique name. In addition, as part of a publicity campaign for staff, a large number of public relations magazines, supplies, common items printed with the character visual of Keteru Yamiko, which was designed by the Foundation illustrators, were widely disseminated at the facilities. Fictional novels, manga, animations with Keteru Yamiko as the main character were produced in sequence, and their viewing was recommended. Through these efforts, the Foundation has succeeded in making almost all personnel share the recognition of SCP-835-JP, Keteru Yamiko, in a few months, and no activation of the object has been reported since then. Although these publicity campaigns are currently being scaled down, items featuring Keteru Yamiko remain in various facilities in order to maintain a certain level of recognition, and the Foundation regularly organizes creative sessions based on the theme of Keteru Yamiko. SCP-835-JP is probably a manifestation of the instinctive fear that something threatening oneself may be lurking in the darkness. But the imaginary monster we once feared has now been reduced to a cliched character with Protocol Idle 835. What do you think about that SCP case? Please leave your comments below.